There we go.
You should talk as loud.
All right. So I have my painting, or my leaf sketch drawn out here lightly in pencil, and then I'm going to look at my paints. And this is a watercolor technique developed by a group of botanical watercolor painters in like the late 1800s. So it's a super old technique, and it's one that I haven't found in like any books since it was published. So it's kind of a hidden gem. And it is a really kind of different way of watercolor painting than the techniques that I showed you yesterday. So if those techniques didn't resonate with you, like a lot of times they didn't for me, there's hope for you in this technique because it is just so kind of different. I want to start with my primary colors and looking at my leaf. I know you can't see it quite as well as I can project it up here, but I want to use my knowledge about color theory to kind of decide what colors to use. I have this kind of cool red, and cool I don't mean like it's really awesome. It is colder. It's more towards a violet. I know that quinacridone red or alizarin crimson would be a good color. So I'm just going to take a few colors, like no more than like 4 or 5, and add them to my palette. And I want most of them to be primary colors or in the primary family. So derivatives or examples of red and blue and yellow. Since I see this cold color, I'm going to use quinacridone. I think that's how it's pronounced. And I'm just going to squeeze that pea-sized blob off to the side, and then I'll mix it with water. I'm going to use a cadmium red too. If you have a cadmium, a brilliant red, any of those at your table, that's a great primary color. You know, hopefully from your years of art education, that you can mix any colors with the primary color. So we're going to use that idea, taking the primary colors, dipping our brush, and mix and be able to mix really anything. I'm also going to take a yellow. I have cadmium yellow. Any yellow that you have is fine. Lemon yellow is good too. And I'm not taking any more than like a pea-sized blob. And I'm going to keep these because we remember how expensive they are. And then a blue, an ultramarine blue would be good. That's kind of like a solid, darker blue. And then I think I'm going to take a yellow ochre as well. And a yellow ochre, if you don't have that at your table, it's okay. Really, I want you to focus on getting these 3 primary colors here. But a yellow ochre is kind of like a dulled down yellow. So I looked at my leaf, I took the primary colors and added a couple other ones. Maybe your leaf is really green. If you have like a sap green or any kind of green at your table, you want to use that. It's up to you. I just don't want you to get too many colors on here. No more than like 4 or 5, and definitely include the primary. So red and blue and yellow. The next thing I'm going to do is load my brush with water, and I'm just going to add a few drops of water to each one. We want this, we talked about the consistency being like half and half or like 2% or whole milk. We want that for this. We can always thin it down, but it's hard to add more pigment once you start painting. So I'm filling these water wells about halfway, and then I'm going to end up mixing them. I want to make sure during the mixing process that I don't contaminate my wells. So you have to kind of think ahead, which is sometimes hard for me. All right. I'm going to move my drawing quick. So here I'm going to take a larger brush and kind of twirl the handle of my brush to get all of that mixed in. I want to make sure that there are no blobs and that the watercolor doesn't settle on the bottom. We want this to be well mixed so that when we dip our brushes in, we get a lot of great pigment mixed with water. I'm going to wipe this off on the side of my well here so that I don't waste any of my watercolor, and then I'm going to rinse it off really well. I want to urge you with watercolor painting to, anytime your water gets really murky, to just get up and change it. It's nice to take a break. And it's also nice to not muck up your painting from dirty water. Mixing this. Another note with painting, I know a lot of us tend to leave our brushes in our water cups. Try to get out of that habit, especially with these watercolor brushes. They're nice, and if we leave this upright like this with the bristle up against the bottom of a bucket, it tends to wear down over time. So get into the habit of laying your brushes to the side of your painting instead of keeping them in your water. It's a good habit too with your own brushes, because like Kolinsky hair, watercolor brushes are really expensive. And if you treat them well, they can last like a lifetime. So we're mixing that. Enough with my brush lecture. So really what I wanted was bare minimum, which is just fine, the red, the yellow, and the blue. Like I said, if you see a lot of other colors, you could, like if you see some green, you can add green in here, or know that you can mix these two colors to make green. If you're working on a painting, it's really important to be able to save what you have, so that your painting comes out with consistent colors. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is find one of these other wells, and I'm just going to take like a brush scoop of each color and then mix it together to get a neutral. I have a lot of reds right here. If I have 2 reds to every one of my other colors, well, and 2 yellows, so I want to just choose the primary colors to mix to get a brown. So I would take my reddest red, which is right here, my yellowest yellow, which I only really have one, and my bluest blue, which again I only have one. So I'm going to scoop a little bit of this cadmium red out and then just brush that to get the pigment in the well. I'm going to rinse that off completely to get my brush clean. I'm going to do the same thing with the yellow. I'm going to scoop that yellow up. I'm going to brush it in here. I notice I need a little bit more pigment in my yellow because it's not, as thick as my red. And I noticed that when I was mixing it. An important thing to keep in mind when starting this technique is that your colors are mixed kind of like equal weight. So they're like the same thickness, about the same pigment to water ratio. There we go. You don't need to get like super scientific about it, but just kind of being in the same ballpark helps. So now that's kind of turning into an orange, and then I'm going to take a scoop of my blue and then mix it in there. And I want this to get kind of like a neutral brown. That's pretty good. I can tell that my red is a little bit stronger than my other colors, so maybe I'll add a little bit more blue. Setting this up is kind of a pain, but once you get going, it's pretty fun. So you want your neutral color to not lean towards any one of the colors, but to be like a brown. Right now it's kind of a warm brown, so I'm going to add a little bit more blue and mix it up there. Perfect. So I'm just preparing my palette.